Hi, it's Catherine here, the author of TORIANA, and I'm going to be bringing you chapter 2 of the book, and it's called Rabbit. Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid. Do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua 1 verse 9. Looking out of the plane window, the airport, my family and friends, Table Mountain and the sea, once such a large part of my life, were now becoming smaller. In my hand I clutched some cards, the words bringing love and comfort and encouragement to be strong and courageous. Here I was alone in the plane, leaving everything and everyone I loved and held so dear. I realized at that moment how easy it is to be strong and courageous when you're surrounded by your friends and family. At the airport, my grandfather had held me so tight and said, "You won't see me again." I loved him so much, I told him that of course I would see him again when I came for holidays. I seemed so sure that everyone would remain just as they were when I left them. This was my dream, to leave all that I held dear for the sake of the call to follow Jesus as a missionary, evangelizing and walking alongside a people, teaching and guiding them on better pathways of life was what I wanted to do. My desire was to help them grow in a relationship with Jesus. I was overwhelmed, scared and excited. I stepped out in faith knowing that His plans were to prosper me and not to harm me. I was traveling this dream alone. I was single. The first part of my dream began on a missionary ship. When I was standing in a crowded dining room, it was filled with chatter and the aroma of different varieties of food. Even the cry of the seagulls and the lapping of the sea against the barge could be heard through the open portholes. My tray, accompanied with a small plate of pasta and a cup of steamy hot tea, and a feeling of uncertainty of where to place myself. I could sit at an empty table, or I could be strong and courageous and sit with new people. I can remember how I was drawn to the table where people were laughing the most, and I recognized the South African accent. So I took the plunge and began a wonderful journey of getting to know new people. I learned the importance of being open and friendly, even when you don't feel like it, and adding a little smile and a touch of humor. It also helped me to be a good listener, and I saw how many people long to share their hearts and not just their daily life. I lived in a tiny cabin with 3 roommates, 2 Americans and 1 Belgian. In my family, I was nicknamed Rabbit. Whenever I arrived for a visit, I would first go to my room, unpack everything, put up some photos and pictures that were familiar, and then I felt at home. I was then ready to come out of my burrow and be with my family. So true to habit, my first few hours on the ship were spent in my cabin, getting my bunk, a shelf, a few drawers and a cupboard to look more like home. Only once I was settled was I ready to begin preparing myself for the new task that lay ahead of me. My ministry was to be a primary school teacher on board for the children of those who were ministering elsewhere on the ship, as doctors, chefs, accountants, engineers, and more. The desire to be a teacher on board this Christian ship evolved over a number of years. When I completed my secondary schooling, I decided to study human resource management at the University of Cape Town. I loved working with people and felt this profession would be a good learning experience in my life. Once I had successfully completed this degree, it was a 3-year degree, I was led to join a company as a human resource manager. It was a learning curve, and I definitely learned professionalism and the stresses involved in being part of the corporate world. On weekends, I enjoyed working with the church in the slum areas of Cape Town, helping with Sunday school. My love for children grew in this time, and my desire to work with them, specifically in a mission context. This became my overwhelming dream. I then returned to the University of Cape Town to study a higher diploma in primary school education. This journey had led me to where I was now, standing in my new cabin classroom preparing exciting lessons. I had a desire not only to teach them what they needed to learn, but to also teach them and create a joyful environment where they could discover Jesus in a new and dynamic way. I had a wonderful principal and team of staff that were incredibly supportive of my ideas. Life serving on the ship at times was beautiful, and other times was frightening. Some days were beautiful and calm, an expanse of blue skies with no end, with the occasional visit of a school of dolphins who surfed at the wake in the bow of the ship. Other days were making sure that everything in our cabin was tied down and the classroom was also tied down and secure, keeping myself steady along the corridor walls and trying to keep focus on teaching maths lessons when all I felt like doing was being sick. One particular rough day, while we had school break with the children playing on the deck, suddenly a huge wave hit the side of the deck ship. We were wet through and shocked and came into the safety of the classroom. The bookshelf had been knocked way from one side of the classroom to the other by this wave, and all the books had been flung onto the floor. The ropes used to tie everything down were not strong enough to hold down everything with that wave. I sometimes felt like that too, that I was not able to tie down the feelings going on in my heart and my mind. There were days filled with deep, meaningful conversations with children about God and Jesus. Early 5 a.m. prayer meetings with good friends and times with my new friends were full of fun, laughter, and joy. Life seemed calm and good, but then came the wave of loneliness, as some of my new-found friends' term on the ship was over and they were going home. In my heart, I just wanted to be strong and courageous, keep all things together and in control. I wanted to keep things all nicely tied up. Living together in a small cabin, not having space or place to work through my thoughts was hard. The big wave that hit my life at that time was a phone call from my father, telling me that my grandfather had passed away. At that time, I realized I didn't have everything in control. Feeling absolutely numb, my mind drifted to a few months before when he had phoned me for Christmas. I missed him and my family so much that all I could do was weep on the phone. All I could manage to say was how much I loved them, how much I loved him. When I was leaving the ship to attend the funeral, my beloved class of children huddled around me, and one of the precious boys cried as he thought I would never come back. He put his arm around me and said, "Miss Fitzpatrick, please don't leave me. Please promise me you will come back." I promised him I would as I flew back home to mourn with my family. Nothing was the same when I had left home. However, Grandpa's clothes and slippers were still where they had been left before he went to play golf. I held my dearest Granny Doreen as we cried, and she said she couldn't move the slippers as she felt like Grandpa would come home any moment. But we both knew that he wouldn't. Friends had moved on in their own lives, some married, some with children. They were still there for me, but it felt different. I realized that this is the reality of life. Things do change. People change. People grow old. People die. Circumstances change. But Jesus never changes. He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Jesus said, "Whoever desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow him." Mark 8, verse 34. We all have our crosses to bear. What I realized too is that he said, "Follow me." Not walk alone, but come with me. He didn't say be strong and courageous and walk this narrow path alone. He said, "Be not afraid, for I, the Lord, am with you wherever you go." Joshua 1, verse 9. So I returned to the ship as I promised the little boy in my class and continued with the plans God had for me. Yes, I was single, but not alone.